Joining us now is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, LaTosha Brown. LaTosha, thanks very much for being with us this morning. You heard there some young Black men expressing frustration with the way that their lives are going right now, and talking a little bit about the Democratic Party and why there may be a disconnect. What did you make of what you heard there, and what does Kamala Harris need to do to win these people over?
You know, it's interesting. This isn't something that we're just hearing. We've heard this for years. I've been doing organizing work for the last 25 years. There's absolutely a frustration in our community by Black men and Black women alike around making sure that they're getting the kind of economic opportunities as other communities, that their issues are centered within the political process. And I think what we're seeing is we're hearing I think there is a more attention by the media around to lift and hear those voices. I think that what VP Harris did on yesterday, Madam Vice President Harris did on yesterday, literally lifting up an agenda that says, I see you, there is something for you. And I recognize that some of the frustrations come from not just in terms of this last administration, but literally a long history of neglect, of not centering the issues in the voices of Black men.
Why do you think that some Black men are interested in voting for Donald Trump? What is it about Trump himself that appeals?
You know, it's interesting. As I think there's a difference between conversation around Trump and the commitment. We heard the same thing in Georgia around Herschel Walker and Senator Warnock, that this was supposed to be a blowout, that there were all these Black men that were going to vote for Herschel Walker, and that simply did not happen. I think what we're capturing is I do believe that there's an issue of frustration, and that the frustration with one candidate does not necessarily mean there's going to be an exodus to the other candidate. But to the extent that I do think that there is some appeal around Donald Trump, I think part of it has been really around his rhetoric, his sexist rhetoric. I think some of it has really been around he's a caricature, and so he's constantly in the media. I think that a lot of that is they're responding to the personality of Trump. But I think ultimately, when it gets down to who's going to turn out to vote, I do not anticipate or see that this large group of Black men or Black anybody is going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, fair enough. It's more that this question of can Trump push that margin to a place where it does make a real difference. How do you think this plays specifically in Georgia, where early voting starts today?
You know, I think what that means is you've got to hit the ground running. I think that the Harris campaign, they have been to Georgia several times, and I think she's coming again this week. I think that's going to be really important and key and critical. What I know is that some of the information we've been running into on the ground is misinformation and disinformation. There have been all kinds of memes and social media posts that actually frame information about this campaign that's quite frankly wrong around both candidates. And so part of, I think, what has to happen at this stage is, one, making sure that we're getting the right information to people on the ground, connecting with them and turning them out.
All right, LaTosha Brown for us this morning. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for being on with us.
Thank you for having me.